Brio English Podcast.
Laugh, learn, love English. I want you to think about the last meeting you had at work, or the last serious conversation you had with a friend about a problem they were facing, or the last time you were trying to make a decision about something important. Now, I want you to count how many of these phrases you used. On the ball, level playing field, move the goalposts, ballpark figure, throw in the towel, step up to the plate, touch base, in your corner.
Wait, those are all sports phrases? I use half of those every single week, and I never once connected them to sport. Not once.
Most people don't, and that's exactly what makes this topic so fascinating. Sport has invaded the English language so completely and so silently that native speakers and English learners use sports expressions dozens of times every single day without the faintest idea where they came from. In your office, in your home, in your relationships, you are constantly speaking in the language of football, boxing, baseball, cricket, and golf.
And for English learners, this creates a very specific problem, because if you don't know where a phrase comes from, you often can't guess what it means from context. Move the goalposts has nothing to do with actual goalposts in a real conversation. Throw in the towel has nothing to do with towels. These phrases are invisible traps for anyone learning English.
Today we're pulling back the curtain on the most common sports expressions in everyday English, where they came from, what they actually mean in conversation, and how to use them naturally. By the end of this episode, you'll be spotting sports language everywhere and using it like a native speaker. I'm Alex. This is Maya. Welcome to Brio English Podcast. Let's play.
Before we get into the phrases, why does sport have such a huge influence on English specifically? Other languages use sport metaphors too, but English seems particularly saturated with them.
A few reasons. First, Britain invented or codified an extraordinary number of the world's major sports. Football, cricket, tennis, boxing, rugby, all got their modern rules from Britain in the 18th and 19th centuries. And Britain was simultaneously building an enormous global empire, so British English and British sports spread together across the world at the same time.
So the sports and the language colonised the world together.
Exactly. And then America added its own enormous contribution: baseball, American football, basketball, all generating their own rich vocabulary that entered everyday American English and then spread globally through American cultural dominance in the 20th century. So when you put British and American sport together, you get this extraordinary volume of sports language that has completely saturated everyday English on both sides of the Atlantic and around the world.
And why do sports metaphors work so well in everyday language? Why do they stick?
Because sport is fundamentally about universal human experiences: competition, effort, fairness, winning and losing, teamwork, strategy, risk. These are experiences every human being understands regardless of whether they follow sport or not. So when someone says, "We need a level playing field," everyone immediately understands the concept of fairness, even if they've never watched a single football match.
The sporting image translates into a universal human concept. That's why the metaphors are so effective and so lasting.
Perfectly put. Right, let's get into the actual expressions. We're going sport by sport. Football first, then boxing, then cricket, then baseball, then a general round. Let's go. Football first. And by football I mean what the world calls football and Americans call soccer. The beautiful game has given English some of its most used everyday expressions. Maya, have you ever had someone move the goalposts on you?
Ha! Only approximately every week at work. My manager moves the goalposts constantly. We agree on what success looks like for a project, and then halfway through he changes what he wants. It's infuriating.
And that's exactly what the phrase means in everyday English: to change the rules or conditions of something after it's already started, making it unfair or more difficult. In actual football, moving the goalposts literally means changing where the goal is, which would obviously be completely unfair mid-match. The metaphor is perfect.
They keep moving the goalposts. One of the most useful phrases in any workplace. What else from football?
A level playing field. In football, a level pitch means both teams have the same conditions, No team is playing uphill. No team has the sun in their eyes. Equal conditions. In everyday English, a level playing field means a situation where everyone has the same opportunities and advantages. We need to ensure a level playing field for all candidates in the hiring process.
I use this one in professional conversations all the time. We need to create a level playing field. And I had absolutely no idea it was a football expression.
Almost nobody does. Next, off the back foot. In football, being on the back foot means you're defending, retreating, under pressure. Your weight is on your back foot rather than your front foot, which is the attacking position. In everyday English, being on the back foot means being in a defensive or reactive position rather than a proactive one. After the negative press coverage, the company was firmly on the back foot.
And the opposite, being on the front foot, means being proactive, taking the initiative, attacking rather than defending.
Exactly. Two phrases, opposite meanings, both from the positioning of a footballer's weight during play. And one more brilliant football expression, to be caught offside. In football, offside means you're in a position that isn't allowed by the rules, specifically being ahead of the last defender when the ball is played to you. In everyday English, being caught offside means being caught in an awkward or disadvantageous position, often because you didn't know the rules or weren't paying attention. I was completely caught offside by his question in the meeting. I hadn't prepared for that at all.
Ha! I have felt caught offside in so many meetings. That phrase is incredibly useful. And now I'll never forget where it came from.
Boxing next. And boxing has given English some of its most dramatic and emotionally resonant everyday expressions. Maya, has anyone ever been in your corner?
When I first moved to the UK, honestly, not many people. It can be quite lonely moving to a new country, but slowly I found people who were genuinely in my corner, and that phrase meant everything.
In boxing, your corner is where your trainer and team wait between rounds. They're the people who support you, patch you up, give you advice, and encourage you to keep going. Being in someone's corner means you're completely on their side, supporting them, cheering for them, helping them through difficult moments. I know this is a tough time, but I want you to know I'm completely in your corner.
Such a powerful phrase. And throw in the towel, where does that come from?
In boxing, when a fighter's corner wants to stop the fight because their boxer is taking too much punishment, they literally throw a towel into the ring. It's a signal to the referee. We give up, stop the fight, protect our fighter. In everyday English, throwing in the towel means giving up on something, admitting defeat, deciding that continuing isn't worth it. After 6 months of trying to make it work, I finally threw in the towel and resigned.
And on the ropes. I hear this one in business contexts constantly.
In boxing, when a fighter has been pushed back against the ropes of the ring, they're in a vulnerable position, being hit from all sides, struggling to defend themselves. In everyday English, being on the ropes means being in serious trouble, struggling to survive, close to failure. The company is on the ropes after losing 3 of its biggest clients. It's more dramatic than just struggling. It implies genuine danger of collapse.
And below the belt. This one I've used many times without knowing it was boxing.
In boxing, hitting below the belt is an illegal move. The rules strictly prohibit striking below the waistband because it causes severe pain and injury. It's a foul. In everyday English, something that is below the belt is unfair, cruel, or outside the acceptable boundaries of decent behavior. That comment about his family was completely below the belt, completely out of order. Anything that violates the unwritten rules of fair play can be described as below the belt.
And one more. Saved by the bell. I know this one.
Everyone knows this one. In boxing, the bell ending a round saves a fighter who is in serious trouble from being knocked out, because the referee must stop the fight when the bell rings regardless of what's happening. In everyday English, being saved by the bell means being rescued from a difficult or embarrassing situation at the last possible moment, usually by something unexpected happening. I was about to have to explain why I hadn't done the report when my phone rang and saved me. Absolutely saved by the bell. Cricket now, And this is particularly fascinating for non-British English learners because cricket expressions are deeply embedded in British English specifically. You'll hear them constantly in British workplaces, in British media, and in everyday British conversation. Maya, is cricket popular where you grew up?
Not really. It's not a big sport where I'm from. So cricket expressions were genuinely mysterious to me when I first came to the UK. I heard them all the time but had no idea what they meant or where they came from.
That's a really common experience for people moving to Britain. Cricket expressions feel very coded, very insider, if you haven't grown up with the sport. Let's decode them. First, sticky wicket. In cricket, a wicket is the set of 3 stumps the batsman defends. After rain, a wet or sticky wicket becomes unpredictable and very difficult to bat on. In everyday English, a sticky wicket means a difficult or awkward situation where there are no easy options. Very British phrase. We're in a bit of a sticky wicket with this client. Whatever we do, someone is going to be unhappy.
Ha! I have heard my British colleagues say, bit of a sticky wicket, so many times. Now I finally understand it completely.
Next, hit for 6. In cricket, hitting a 6 means the batsman strikes the ball so powerfully it flies over the boundary without bouncing. The maximum possible score from a single shot. A spectacular achievement. In everyday English, being hit for 6 means being completely shocked or devastated by something, knocked completely off balance. I was absolutely hit for 6 when I heard the news. I had no idea it was coming.
And it's not cricket. I've heard this one. It means something isn't fair, right?
Exactly. Cricket has a very strong tradition of being a gentleman's game, played with strict codes of honour, fair play, and good sportsmanship. It's not cricket means something violates the unwritten rules of decent, fair behaviour. Very similar to below the belt, but more British and slightly more genteel. Telling the client about our internal problems, that's simply not cricket.
And on a different note, a good innings. I've heard this used at funerals and when people retire.
Yes, this is one of the most emotionally loaded cricket expressions. In cricket, an innings is a team's or player's time to bat. A good innings means you batted for a long time and scored well. In everyday English, a good innings refers to a long and successful life or career. It's often used when someone elderly dies. He had a good innings, meaning he lived a long, full life. Or when someone retires after a long career. She had a remarkable innings at this company. It's a very British way of acknowledging a life or career well lived.
That's actually beautiful, taking a sporting metaphor and using it to honour a whole life. That's the English language at its most poetic.
Now American sports, and specifically baseball, which has given everyday English some of its most widely used expressions globally. Maya, you've probably heard these even if you've never watched a baseball game in your life.
Definitely. American English expressions spread everywhere through films, TV shows, and business culture. Let's hear them.
First, touch base. In baseball, touching base means returning safely to a base. In everyday English, touching base means making brief contact with someone to check in, share information, or reconnect. Let's touch base next week and see where the project stands. You hear this constantly in professional settings. It's become completely standard business English.
I use touch base probably 3 times a week in emails. Baseball. Who knew?
Next, a ballpark figure. In baseball, the ballpark is the stadium. A ballpark figure is an approximate number, somewhere in the general area, not precise but in the right region. I don't have the exact cost yet, but ballpark it's around £50,000. Essential phrase in business conversations when you need to give an approximate estimate without committing to exact numbers.
And step up to the plate. This one I love.
In baseball, stepping up to the plate means taking your turn to bat, literally walking up to the home plate and facing the pitcher. It takes courage and commitment. In everyday English, stepping up to the plate means taking responsibility, rising to a challenge, volunteering to handle something difficult. Nobody else wanted to lead the project, so I stepped up to the plate. It implies voluntary courage. You weren't forced. You chose to take on the challenge.
And from American football, game plan. I hear this everywhere.
Game plan. From American football, where the coaching staff develops a detailed strategy for each opponent. In everyday English, A game plan is any strategic plan for achieving a goal. What's our game plan for the client presentation next week? It implies a structured, thought-out approach rather than just winging it. And one more from American sport generally, the whole 9 yards. The origin of this one is actually debated. Some say it's from American football, 9 yards being just short of the 10 needed for a first down. In everyday English, it means everything, the complete amount, holding nothing back. She planned the whole event herself, the decorations, the food, the entertainment, the whole 9 yards.
The whole 9 yards. I've said that so many times. Never knew where it came from. Sports are literally everywhere in English. Everywhere.
Bonus round, because we can't do a sports episode without golf and tennis. Maya, are you a golf person?
Absolutely not. But I use golf expressions constantly, apparently.
Par for the course. In golf, par is the expected number of strokes to complete a hole. Something that is par for the course is exactly what you'd expect. Nothing surprising, nothing exceptional, just the normal standard. The meeting ran over by 20 minutes, completely par for the course with this team. It can be slightly negative, implying that the expected thing is mediocre or frustrating.
What about on the ball? Is that football?
Actually, this one likely comes from several ball sports simultaneously. Being literally on the ball means having control of it, being alert and ready. In everyday English, being on the ball means being alert, efficient, aware of what's happening. She's completely on the ball. Nothing gets past her. High praise in any professional context.
And jump the gun. Where's that from?
Athletics, track and field. The starting gun fires to begin a race. Jumping the gun means starting before the gun fires, a false start. In everyday English, jumping the gun means acting too soon, before you have all the information or before the right moment. I don't want to jump the gun, but I think we might be close to a deal. Acting prematurely, before conditions are right.
And the ball is in your court. Tennis?
Tennis, absolutely. When the ball is in your court, it's your turn to play, your responsibility to act. In everyday English, the ball is in your court means it's your turn to take action, make a decision or respond. I've sent my proposal. The ball is now in their court. I use this constantly, and until about 5 minutes ago, I probably couldn't have told you it was from tennis.
Ha! This whole episode is making both of us realise how little we knew about the language we speak every single day. That's the best kind of learning.
Now, the practical section. Because knowing these expressions is one thing, using them naturally in your own English is another. There are some important rules about using sports expressions well.
Rule 1. Context matters enormously. Sports expressions work brilliantly in casual conversation and in professional settings, but they can feel out of place in very formal writing or in sensitive emotional conversations. I'm in your corner is perfect for a friend going through difficulty, but in a formal legal document, probably not.
Rule 2. Don't mix your metaphors. This is a classic mistake, saying we need to step up to the plate and make sure we're not caught offside and throw in the towel before the ball is in our court. 3 sports. Complete confusion. Pick one metaphor and commit to it.
Ha! I have absolutely heard people mix metaphors like that in meetings. It becomes almost comical.
Rule 3. Sports expressions are excellent for creating common ground quickly. When you use a sports expression correctly with a native speaker, especially a British one, it signals that you understand their cultural references. It's a small but powerful moment of connection. Sounds like we're in a bit of a sticky wicket, said to a British colleague, will likely produce a smile and a sense of, this person gets us.
And rule 4, if you're not sure whether you're using one correctly, it's better to describe the situation plainly than to use the expression wrong. A misused sports expression can be more confusing than just saying what you mean directly.
Exactly right. Use them when you're confident. Build up gradually. And every time you hear one in a film, a podcast, or a conversation, now you'll know exactly where it came from. Listener challenge. And this week's is going to be fun.
Tell us.
This week, we want you to go sports expression hunting. Every time you hear a sports expression in a conversation, a film, a TV show, a podcast, or at work, write it down. Keep a list for the whole week. At the end of the week, count how many you found. We think you're going to be genuinely shocked by how many there are once you start looking.
And share your favourite discovery in the comments. The most surprising one you found, something you'd been using for years without knowing it was a sports expression. We want to read every single one.
And if you want a bonus challenge, try using one new sports expression from today's episode in a real conversation this week. Just one. See how it lands. See if anyone notices. Come back and tell us what happened. Listener comments and the challenge responses from episode 6 have been extraordinary. You all went and removed your confidence-draining words and came back to tell us what happened.
Read them.
First comment, from a listener in India. I removed the word just from my emails for 1 week. My manager called me into his office on Thursday and said my communication had become noticeably more professional. He asked what had changed. I told him I was working on my English. He said whatever I was doing, keep doing it. 1 word, 1 week, my manager noticed.
1 word, 1 week. Manager noticed. That is the most powerful testimony for episode 6 I could possibly imagine. That listener changed how they're perceived at work by removing a single word from their vocabulary. That's genuinely remarkable.
Second comment, from a listener in Brazil. I chose to remove does that make sense from my presentations. Instead, I started saying what questions do you have? In my last presentation, 3 people asked follow-up questions. More engagement than I have ever had before. I used to think nobody was interested. Now I think they just needed a different invitation.
They just needed a different invitation. That's beautiful insight. The audience was there all along. The language just wasn't inviting them in properly. So proud of that listener.
And one more, from a listener in the Philippines. I stopped saying sorry to bother you in my emails. At first it felt rude and I was very uncomfortable. But the responses I got back were warmer and more helpful than before. I think by apologizing for existing, I was actually making people feel awkward. When I stopped apologizing, they felt more comfortable helping me, complete opposite of what I expected.
By apologising for existing, you were making people feel awkward. That is such a profound observation. Sometimes removing the apology makes both people more comfortable. That listener figured out something really deep about human communication in 1 week.
And that is episode 7 of Brio English Podcast, the sports edition.
Quick recap. Football gave us move the goalposts, level playing field, on the back foot and caught offside. Boxing gave us in your corner, throw in the towel, on the ropes, below the belt, and saved by the bell. Cricket gave us sticky wicket, hit for 6, it's not cricket, and a good innings. Baseball and American sports gave us touch base, ballpark figure, step up to the plate, game plan, and the whole 9 yards. And our bonus round, par for the course, on the ball, jump the gun, and the ball is in your court.
20 sporting expressions, all of them used in everyday English constantly. All of them now making complete sense.
Your challenge, go expression hunting this week. Keep a list, share your discoveries in the comments. We read every single one.
Next episode, we're exploring something that affects every single person who has ever tried to make an impression. The specific words that make people trust you immediately. The language of credibility, warmth, and authority. Whether in job interviews, relationships, first meetings, or important conversations, this episode will change how you speak. Trust me on that.
Cannot wait for that one. See you next episode.
Until then, step up to the plate, stay on the ball, and never let anyone move your goalposts. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.